That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, so y'all know this is something we have been doing pretty much every single week for the entire offseason, just going through and going to the flock over there on Locals, going over on Twitter and saying, hey, do y'all have any trades you want highlighted in this week's video? Any real Dynasty trades? But this one's going to be a little bit different because we've had so many players moving in value. Guys like, obviously, Deshaun Watson, Devontae Adams, Derek Carr, James Conner, yada, yada, yada. We have all those guys. So the post we made this week was saying, you know what? Please, if you have any trades with players that just switched teams or were affected by free agency, leave them down in the comment section below. Of course, these are trades that happened after that move. So we're going to get a much better understanding of what their real current Dynasty value is. And of course, before we dive into it, you know what I'm saying, drop a like, leave a comment with any trades you have made since free agency. Not even any trades you have made, any trades you have seen go down in your league since free agency, because I know that, if we are limiting it to a certain amount of players, probably you haven't made a trade yourself with someone like Deshaun Watson. But if you've seen that done, please leave that in the comment section to give our entire community a better feeling on what those current price points are. And subscribe to the channel if you play Dynasty Fantasy Football. We should have a very exciting announcement coming soon about our Dynasty research book. That's going to be coming this week. I can't say anything just yet. But let's go through. Let's dive into our first trade here. It's going to be a Deshaun Watson trade where Deshaun Watson and Harrison Bryant were traded essentially for Lamar Jackson. Now, while I like Harrison Bryant, while he is a player that I am definitely targeting at the end of startup drafts, Jane and I just took him at the end of one of our startup drafts. He is nothing in this deal. This is something that's a small note that I just want to have for pretty much any trade that you are making. If you are trading two blue chip Dynasty prospects, blue chip Dynasty cornerstone assets like this, Deshaun Watson and Lamar Jackson, and then you throw on just the smallest little piece, you throw on Harrison Bryant, literally you can just completely ignore that. That is like, two airline companies going, hey, we'll give you this jet if you give us that one. We really just need to make that swap, and we'll throw in a free t-shirt while you do it. The t-shirt means nothing. Like, let's not be looking at Harrison Bryant. It's, do you want Deshaun Watson? Do you want Lamar Jackson? And I know a lot of people have said, well, Mason, you missed over the fact that his first year of his contract is only set up to pay him $1 million. So he could still get suspended and he still could get paid based on that. And of course, Deshaun Watson may still get suspended at some point his first season back. Now, my entire point of that, saying the Cleveland Browns gave up 3 first-round picks and $230 million guaranteed, was to say, I think there is a 0% chance that Deshaun Watson is suspended for over a year, and a very, 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 very small chance that he is suspended for an entire season. It's still likely Watson is suspended for a month, but we're playing Dynasty Fantasy Football. Playing Dynasty. What does a month have to do with anything, especially a month that's not the fantasy football playoffs? And if you look at Deshaun Watson versus Lamar Jackson, Watson has a higher points per game mark in a crappier situation, and he's going over to Cleveland, which isn't a great situation by any means, but it's nothing worse than what he had in Houston. So I am naturally not expecting really any fall off in the production that we are going to get from Watson. To go along with this, I believe Watson has the better arm talent to be able to have that prolonged career until age 37, where Lamar, I'd be a little bit more worried about him having the running back type fall off at age 26, 27. But let me know what y'all think. I prefer Watson over Lamar Jackson. That's how I currently have it ranked over there on Locals. Now, our next trade is going to be another Deshaun Watson deal. But what's interesting with this trade is you actually have Derek Carr involved. You have Deshaun Watson and the 209 versus Derek Carr, David Montgomery, and the 112. Now, I want to look at that 112 and I want to try to put an actual name attached to it, just so you get an idea of the player that you should be expecting near that range. I think that a name that most people can agree will probably be around there would be someone like Jahan Dotson. I mean, Dotson, let's just say he is the wide receiver you're able to take at the 112. He goes to the New Orleans Saints in the second round. While I think that Derek Carr is definitely going to have a great real-life NFL season, I think that the addition of Devontae Adams makes the Las Vegas Raiders a top 10 passing offense this season. I still prefer Watson here. With Derek Carr, even if he were to go out there, and even if Derek Carr were to become a top 5 quarterback in the NFL with his passing yards on a per game basis, because he doesn't run the ball, and we can reasonably expect Watson to get about 500 rushing yards with an additional, say, 6 rushing touchdowns over the next 3 seasons each, that's an additional 80 points. 80 points just on the ground. Now, I'm no mathematician, but I can get out a calculator and I can figure out what 80 points turned into passing yards is, and that's an additional 2,000 passing yards Watson's getting added on compared to Derek Carr. And I think if you took a tally across the NFL, who has more passing yards on a per game basis this upcoming season, Watson versus Derek Carr, it's going to be split almost 50-50. Now, of course, Watson has crushed him previously, but Derek Carr is getting that elite weapon added in, possibly the best receiver in the NFL. And to go along with this, Watson's going to be on a run-first team in Cleveland. So it doesn't really matter if the efficiency is going to be way up with Deshaun Watson if they're still trying to run the ball with Nick Chubb. But still, the additional 2,000 passing yards in terms of equivalent production with running the ball is massive. That's massive. It makes Deshaun Watson, a quarterback that we have seen through 4 years of his NFL career, have the floor of the quarterback 6 on a points per game basis. That means Watson's floor so far has been higher than any ceiling we have seen from Derek Carr. Of course, I am speaking from fantasy football, fake football. I know we're going to have a lot of people thinking that I'm saying Watson is so much better of a real-life NFL quarterback than Derek Carr is, which he is. I will say that. But the difference in fantasy football is even larger than in real life. Derek Carr is a great quarterback, but he doesn't have that elite ceiling because he can't run the ball. Give me Watson. I really think that Watson is just that top 5 quarterback yet again in Dynasty, even with the possibility of a 8 game suspension. Now let's go over to a big trade with a lot of moving pieces. We got Robert Woods, Juju Smith-Schuster, the 105, and the 210 going over for James Conner, Elijah Moore, and Travis Etienne. Now, y'all know I am a Juju Smith-Schuster fan. I am a Juju fanboy. Looking at that 2018 season, I will never get that out of my brain. And even going back to the last healthy year we had with Juju Smith-Schuster in 2020, it's funny because people want to act like Juju was just the worst wide receiver ever, that he was the biggest bust in fantasy football. And keep in mind, I was telling people to go out there and aggressively draft Juju in 2020 and trade for him, and his value went down. That cannot be debated. We lost the Juju Smith-Schuster battle. I 100% lost it. But still, at the end of the day, people act like it was just a garbage season. And in reality, he went out there in 2020, had almost 100 receptions, had almost 10 touchdowns. That was a very bad year from a Juju Smith-Schuster standpoint. He was that low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3. So Juju going over to Kansas City is about the best landing spot we could have. But Robert Woods, Tennessee, great landing spot. James Conner going back to Arizona, best case scenario. So I think a lot of these players have seen their value take a sharp uptick. Now, if I break this down, the key piece to me is going to be Travis Etienne. If you were looking at Travis Etienne, he will be a better asset with his prospect profile, with the James Robinson injury at the end of the season, than whoever you are going to get at that rookie pick 105. It doesn't matter if it's a super flex. It doesn't matter if it's a one quarterback league. Give me Travis Etienne over that 105. And if we look at the other pieces in this deal, if we compare Elijah Moore to Juju Smith-Schuster, I just got done talking about the fact that I think that Juju had a great landing spot. I've loved Juju in the past, and I've been way too high on him pretty much every single season, and I'm the first person to admit that. But I still probably prefer Elijah Moore over Juju Smith-Schuster, despite Juju being in Kansas City. And then if we're viewing James Conner versus Robert Woods in the 210, they're both win now assets. The only difference is James Conner's a 3-down running back, one of the better offenses in the NFL. Give me James Conner. So I think that the Travis Etienne side of this trade definitely wins it. I love the landing spot for Juju Smith-Schuster. I'm not going to fault anybody for wanting to go out there and trade for him. I just personally can't pay that price. So now let's go over to our next deal. It's going to be a Mitchell Trubisky trade. And this goes back to what we were talking about when you're trading these top tier assets and just garbage is getting thrown in. It will really clutter the deal. It's like you go in to buy a house and they'll tell you they'll keep the garden hose in the backyard. What does that have to do with anything? No, let's remove those pieces. Darrell Williams, trash him, throw him away. Donta Foreman, I like Donta Foreman, but if you're comparing him in a deal with someone like Dalvin Cook, trash him. I don't even think we need to be viewing the deal with him in it. If it is dead even, then we can come back to these pieces. But this trade isn't dead even. Let's get rid of Donta Foreman. And we can almost say the same thing with the 306. Now, I think Terrace Marshall's a fine buy low as a throw-in wide receiver, but his value is currently the 306. So what we can do is we can just trash Foreman, trash Darrell Williams for nothing, take the 306 out, as well as taking Terrace Marshall out on the other side because they're about equivalent. And we can view this trade as Mitchell Trubisky, Rashad Penny, and Pat Freiermuth for Dalvin Cook. Now, I will say it is a fair deal on the surface if you are under the assumption that Trubisky starts all of 2022 and all of 2023. I am hesitant to say that, however. And y'all know, very similar to how I've been wrong on Juju every year. I've been too high on Juju Smith-Schuster every single year. Y'all know Rashad Penny, another player. Since his rookie season, looking at his prospect profile coming out of San Diego State, he was one of those guys like Breece Hall where he said, oh, you can't miss. He has the size, the athleticism, the passing game ability, the draft capital. What else is there? But what we didn't see with Rashad Penny is how injury prone he would be. And of course, people use the phrase injury prone when they should never, with 90% of these NFL players. But I think we can safely say at this point, since he was drafted in 2018, we have a 5-game stretch of him staying healthy since 2018. The probability that Rashad Penny is able to hold up, slim to none. I hate to say it. And Pittsburgh still has pick 20. Pittsburgh can still go out there and grab another quarterback. If Kenny Pickett falls, if Matt Corral falls, this Trubisky contract doesn't scream that he is a guaranteed starting quarterback. So what I would be very worried about is trading away Dalvin Cook. Pittsburgh takes a quarterback at 20, and then you have just received an injured running back, a starting quarterback for 8 weeks, and Pat Freiermuth for Dalvin Cook. This is a trade that I think you can make right before the season starts if Rashad Penny looks like he's fully healthy. If Pittsburgh doesn't bring in another quarterback, then if you're like, you know what, I am all in on this Pittsburgh Steelers situation, give me Trubisky, give me Freiermuth, then you can make that deal. But for us to make this before the NFL draft, when there's still that outside chance that Pittsburgh takes a quarterback, I can't do it. Now let's go over to our next trade. This is going to be Amari Cooper going over to Cleveland. I pronounced him dead. Said, Amari, off my draft board. Look how bad Baker Mayfield is. Look how Baker Mayfield kills receivers. Then you get Watson coming over. And everything has changed. Everything has changed. So you get Amari Cooper, Darren Waller, the 106, and a second. And on the other side, you have Hopkins, Deshaun Watson, and the 108. Now, if you look at my Dynasty rankings right now, you go over to locals and you pull those up. I currently have Amari Cooper and DeAndre Hopkins ranked back-to-back. I have Amari Cooper, I believe, one spot higher. Now, main reason for that is he's going to be a little bit younger than DeAndre Hopkins. But if we take those two pieces out, saying they are of comparable value, and we are left over with Darren Waller, the 106, and a future second, versus Watson in the 108, I think it's very simple. Is this a one quarterback format? If it's a one quarterback format, of course, you're going to prefer Darren Waller in the 106. However, if it's a super flex league, I probably would rather take Watson over the combination of Waller, the 106, and a future second. Because Darren Waller went from being a player that I was secretly acquiring in a lot of best ball drafts at the beginning of this offseason, and at the same time, I was drafting him in some dynasty startups, to now with Davante Adams coming over, with Davante Adams presumably taking 28% of the team's targets, even with the assumption that, yes, Las Vegas is going to get better. Las Vegas will take a step up. Still, that's not something you can get that excited about for Darren Waller. I mean, Davante Adams is that elite red zone weapon. You should see the touchdown rate, the touchdown equity. I mean, take a significant step back for Darren Waller. Give me Watson. Give me Watson. If it was a one quarterback format, then we can speak on something differently. Now, our next trade, this is just to maybe illustrate how value is going to be different in every league. Of course, I can say I'm valuing Deshaun Watson as the quarterback 5 in Dynasty. But should you go out there and offer Lamar Jackson for him straight up right away? No, of course not, because a lot of other people, most other people would prefer Lamar. So this trade is just a good example of that. Here's someone who's able to trade Watson and get Lamar Jackson and a 2023 first. I mean, I guess maybe I had that backwards. Maybe some people have Watson that much higher. I'm not going to be that crazy. I am not going to be going out there adding a first round pick to Lamar Jackson to get Deshaun Watson. But just to show y'all some of the trades happening in leagues, that there are people crazier than I am. And now our next deal is going to be one involving Albert O. And here, this is a 2023 first round pick for Albert O and Gabriel Davis. Now, I know a lot of people have asked us about Albert O since Noah Fant was traded. And not only was Noah Fant traded, but obviously, Russell Wilson's the best quarterback Denver has had since Peyton Manning. I mean, this is a pretty big deal. Now, with Albert O, he is also an athletic freak. I will be the first person to say that. I mean, let me pull this up. Not only is he a massive tight end standing in there at 6'6", 258 pounds, but he ran a 4.49. And I want to be the first one to say that the Denver coaching staff, the Denver front office, probably knows more about Albert O and his potential than I do, than you do, than anybody in the Dynasty community does. So for them to be willing to sign off and trade Noah Fant away, almost valued as a throw-in in that deal with Seattle, I think that's probably speaks very positively on what we can see with his future going forward. Now, I do want to just be a little bit of a wet blanket on this scenario. Albert O, at the end of the day, while he does have this ceiling, while there are some really large positive indicators for his profile, he is going into year 3. He has seen so far as a career high. Let me get out my little nifty calculator here. I know he has been in a very bad situation playing behind Noah Fant, not only playing behind Noah Fant, horrible quarterback play, competing for targets with Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. I mean, a very difficult spot to be in. But at the end of the day, he was a day 3 NFL draft pick that has a career high 23 receiving yards on a per game basis. While Albert O definitely has upside, at this point, he is just a pure projection. That's what he is. He is a pure projection. Now, with Gabriel Davis, obviously, another big winner. With Gabriel Davis, I thought there was an outside chance this team went out there and made an aggressive move for a wide receiver. I mean, clearly this is an offense that runs 4 wide receivers more than pretty much any other team in the NFL. I mean, no Emmanuel Sanders. Don't know if Cole Beasley's going to be there this upcoming season. I mean, there should be a large need sitting there at the receiver position for the Buffalo Bills. And of course, a lot of people think they're going wide receiver in round 1, which is definitely a possibility. Knowing where they're selecting, there should be a couple options available to them. So Gabriel Davis has had a great offseason, not only with the depth chart clearing out, but not to mention, he probably had one of the best playoff games for a wide receiver in NFL history. But at the end of the day, this is a wide receiver that has a career best 37 receiving yards on a per game basis. I don't necessarily see how these players have their value increase throughout this offseason. I think this has pretty much been the best case scenario for them so far. So I would be fine selling them for a 2023 first with the assumption that we could use that first round pick once we get closer to the season and have a better understanding of what the situations are for different receivers and knowing exactly what we're going out there and purchasing, not necessarily just going and making a bet on a projection. Rather, we can get someone that we actually see producing. I'm going to prefer the 2023 first with the assumption it's a super flex. But of course, please let me know what you think in the comment section. Go down there, leave a comment if you have any deals involving one of these players that just switched teams and has seen a pretty big shift in value, because I want to have a little catalog down there where someone has Derek Carr on their team and they go, okay, maybe should I put Derek Carr on the block? They can go down there and they can check it out. But of course, thank you so much for being a part of the flock and supporting the channel. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Really hope you got something from it. Go down there, drop a like, subscribe if you play Dynasty Fantasy Football, and have a great day.